23 days ago, and a member of parliament for Ejisu constituency, Honorable John Ampuntio-Kuma Ofrimu, 23 days ni, and Ode Efrimu. Option 4. Going into or heading towards the 2024 election, as a constituency, it was Omutimi Enya representative even before the 2024 election. Na bibia so timi koso yi. Na esan se John Kuma oye member of parliament representing the NPP no. It was NPP timi present a candidate na NDC enso de ne de by election etimi koso e bia na obi be independent and I say e bia political party bia candidate bi betimi agina. But all the same, NPP amonyoko ni mu ankasa etwa se omutimi eyi a representative and as a parliamentary candidate obe contested for the by-election. Eno anantia eka yensa kire se 13 April and NPP eyi adiesi wo se omo edi omo parliamentary primaries for Ejisu constituency na omotimi edi eyi a candidate what him na by election no as against a political party. I know say the NDC every candidate na being so be independent and then but then now we are focusing on the NPP now. And so looking at the primaries because 13th. We shall for statement about one thing the General Secretary Justin Kudia from Ponho. Now in the statement and it said one we are interested to contest in the parliamentary race and as a primary no they are invited to purchase and submit their nominations forms between Tuesday April 2nd and Thursday April 4th at the constituency party office. According to NPP, aspiring candidates must acquire nomination forms after paying for a non-refundable application fee of 3,000 Ghana cedis in bankers' draft to the new patriotic party's national headquarters, Accra. Additionally, a non-refundable filing fee of 35,000 Ghana cedis in bankers' draft, also payable to the national headquarters, is required. However, the statement highlighted the women, youth aged between 18 to 40 years and persons with disabilities will benefit from a 50% rebate on the filing fees, reducing their payment to 17,500 Ghana cedis. The approved timeline for the Ejisu election is as follows. So opening of nominations, Sedana Mekano is on 2nd April 2024, and then closing of nominations will be on 4th April 2024, and then the election will come on. I think that the date is 13th April 2024. Date, 13th April. Furthermore, an election committee (EC) has been constituted to oversee the electoral process. The committee comprises Mr. Dankwa Smith Bati as chairman, Mr. Bernard Nshibo as vice chairman, and other members including Honorable Patricia Apieje, Madam Martha Kudia, and Mr. Evans Nimako serving as secretary. The NPP has also approved comprehensive rules and regulations to govern the parliamentary primary, which will be accessible to all stakeholders, while the Electoral Commission is yet to announce a specific date for the by-election. A former Ghana Football Association president, Kwasi Nyantakyi, has declared his intention in contesting for the Ejisu parliamentary seat. So this is the report at the headquarters of the new patriotic party, signed by the General Secretary Justin Kudia Frimpong, letter signed by Justin Kudia Frimpong. By election easy enyamfa who date Emma ye name we nim say jaya because even be I think say we a bit me akos even before class say just say I don't know but then your friends one but then all they say campaign and hold so within the political party say be I know say there was a so even before so be a the campaign as be I think say and now I share campaign as nothing near by election but all the same that's the suggestion. This is a suggestion, but all the same, no, I don't know the time each developer for the by-election. But an NPP preparing towards the by-election. So, and on my 13th April, not just over and 14 days, now more parliamentary primary for Ejisu constituency, no, in Ediaba. So, I say, a former GFA president, I kwasi Nantachi, I dare say, unity and then we declare an interest say a person contested for the seat and so young said the semno ABC ako na ye update be do piano yetimi de emunchire mu nyina atimi de abram ye other stories na yemfa ehon so nsem kakra for abeka yensa no emfa emro ye report for abeka yensa update for abeka yensa yeguso agina mu NPP amonyokuo ni mu ana yeguso abusafo yegina dedendendenden yegina ho dedendendenden abusafo anya asem keto ebre no aka kakra bi na chese abato no ye etibi abeso na aye kwasi ahoy ensem okokan ye edefa John Dramani Mahama Professor Jena no Pokwajman enho se on prepare na ho na anything could happen. Professor Jena no Pokwajman should prepare to become president because anything can happen, citing or making reference to 2012 incidents I see here. All the same, they say, Ubi a chenadune at the fahu, Ubi a can chenadune at the fahu. Now, lawyer Paul Adomotri, for Wasaka Sebi. This time, Adiana or Waka, Yanko, na Yunkuti Emra.
Hoy, at the time, Minister of Agric. Oh, why is my thing not coming? Agric. Okay, sorry if it's not clear. This is Martin Amidu, at the time, Attorney General. This is Ejisu Haruna, at the time, Minister of Comms. Okay, so here we go. Professor Mills, President. John Mahama, Vice President. Kwesi Ahoy, Minister of Agric. And mind you, Minister of Agric is a very high and important portfolio in any presidency. So a president makes somebody Minister of Agric, tells of his relationship with the person. So you know that Professor Mills and the Ahoys are quite close. You know that Kwame Ahoy wasn't a minister. He had been a minister before under Rawlings. Ato Ahoy, they call him Don King. That was his nickname in those days. Don King is also, he's been minister before, and he was not a minister, but they were really controlling the Mills presidency. You know that already. Okay. And so Kwesi is a great minister. Martin Amidu is Attorney General. Martin Amidu does not start as Attorney General anyway. I believe he starts as Interior Minister, and then the Betty Moldidrisu issues occur with the Woyome situation, and then Betty is moved to education. Ejisu Haruna had been the youngest NDC person to be a full minister. Most of his Ejisu Haruna's contemporaries were not made full ministers under the Professor Mills administration. You can remember Elvis Efri Ankara, who is Ejisu Haruna's sort of mate and contemporary. Elvis was Deputy Minister of Local Government. All of Ejisu Haruna's contemporaries, most of them, maybe Samuel Ofusampofu, who was Minister for Local Government, but Ofusampofu will be senior to Ejisu Haruna a little bit, because in 1996, he won the Fantiakwa seat away from Dr. John Soforiata. I remember that clearly. 1996. Ofusampofu, at that time, he was at Accra Poly. He was one of the early pioneers of the HND program, Samuel Ofusampofu, and he used to be at Accra Poly. He was with the group in Accra Poly who used to behave like the Vandals. What are they called? I remember. Yes, so Ofusampofu is slightly senior to Ejisu Haruna. But then, among Ejisu Haruna's contemporaries, he was the one who was made a full minister in a very important position as communication. Now, the story is told that during the brouhaha about the Airbus situation, Professor Mills became worried upon an alert by Brigadier Smith, Major General Smith, I believe, or his Lieutenant General Smith, he recently passed, may he rest in peace. Something like that. Professor Mills then asked Martin Amidu to conduct an investigation of the process. Martin Amidu's investigation seems to be pointing to some participation by the Vice President or so, something like that. Okay. I'm not so sure what the relationship between Martin Amidu and the Vice President is anyway. But Martin Amidu is a senior politician to the Vice President, for sure, in terms of NDC politics. He had been Attorney General from 1980-something. John Dramani Mahama was introduced into the government in 1997. Of course, having been a District Assembly person, he was introduced as Member of Parliament for Bole Bamboy in the 1996 December elections. By that time, Martin had seen a lot of politics. Martin had also been John Mahama's predecessor on the Professor Mills ticket, hadn't he? Yes, he had been, because he was running mate in 2000. So I don't know whether there's tension between them or not. I'm not sure, but you can see, I will not be surprised if there was tension, given all the scenarios I've given you. And then Ejisu Haruna. When it was said that Martin Amidu was approaching some information against John Dramani Mahama, of course, friends and supporters of John Mahama were suspicious that Martin Amidu himself has a motive to achieve something against John Mahama. I had these conversations around in corridors and living rooms and all of that. Anyway, it is said further that the plan then was that if Martin Amidu were to successfully find against the Vice President will be told to resign. You heard the story that the Vice President resigned before. I should have added Koko Anyidoho to this list. I should have. So keep Koko Anyidoho at the back of your mind. He's the spokesperson of the president at the Jubilee House, at the Osu Castle, I should say. Koko Anyidoho, keep him in mind. He's part of the story. So the story is told that as Martin Amidu is approaching some evidence against John Mahama, John Mahama will be told by Professor Mills that based on the report that he has, he should resign from office on corruption. Find something to resign. Okay. If John Mahama were to resist the advice to resign in those circumstances, parliamentary processes was going to be started against him, an impeachment under the 1992 Constitution. This is the story. Okay. If John Mahama were to agree to resign sometime at the beginning of 2012, if he were to agree to resign, then the office of the Vice President will be vacant. Now here the story continues. It was proposed by the couple, the one who is putting this plan together, or the people who are putting this plan together. It was widely suspected that this whole plan was being drafted at Church Street. Widely suspected. They may come and deny it, but it's okay. I'm just throwing it out there. It was widely suspected that this whole drama and plan was hatched at Church Street. And that's why I didn't like it when Kwesi Ahoy referred to Church. If I were his PR person, I'll tell him take Church Street out of this conversation because this is very sensitive. This whole thing was hatched by Church Street. So the couple at Church Street, as I said, had decided that if John Mahama were to exit, Professor Mills will appoint Kwesi Ahoy here as the Vice President. We are not done yet. So you're going to have two fancies, isn't it? Yeah. Professor Mills was going to appoint Kwesi Ahoy as Vice President. At that time, it was very obvious that Ato Ahoy was the backbone running the show at the Mills presidency. But by 2012, that was waning away a little bit. People had spoken to Professor Mills from different angles, pastors and all that, and that was changing a little bit. But it was still somewhat there. Not as pronounced as it was in 2012, but not as it was in 2009, 10, 11, but it was still there. Okay. It was also seen that Professor Mills will be able to handle his job as a president of Ghana. That was not problematic because he had staff to work with him. But the suspicion at the first quarter of 2012 for the key decision makers in NDC was, will Professor Mills be able to manage the rough and tumble of the electionary campaign coming up against Nana Akufo-Addo? That was beginning to worry a lot of NDC people. That will Prof be able to manage this campaign against Akufo-Addo? See what happened in 2008. We are going to rot a campaign again, the rough and tumble of it. Will Professor Mills be able to manage it? Many people were going to make observations about this question and answer in the negative, that this was going to be difficult. In those circumstances, Professor Mills was going to be convinced that he should step down as president in favor of the campaign being run effectively to defeat the NPP again for the NDC second term in 2012. If Professor Mills stepped down as president in those circumstances, who becomes president? Kwesi Ahoy. Kwesi Ahoy becomes president. If Professor Mills steps down, Kwesi Ahoy becomes president. Then Kwesi Ahoy becomes the NDC ticket holder for the December 2012 election. And how was that going to be difficult? That wasn't going to be difficult. After all, Kwesi Ahoy's brother, Uncle Ato, controlled the NDC at the time. He controlled the base of the NDC at the time. Nothing was going to change. If Professor Mills were to accept that I'm stepping down as president for Kwesi Ahoy, it will be smooth. It will be seamless. Then the argument was that the Northerners were going to be concerned. Alhaji Hudu Yaya, John Mahama, all the NDC Northerners were going to be concerned that what is this fancy orchestration against us? You take John Mahama out, then you bring Kwesi Ahoy, and what's going on? So, to appease them, Kwesi Ahoy was going to appoint Ejisu Haruna as his running mate for election 2012. So the NDC ticket of election 2012, if this story is true, if it's that Church Street had organized Kwesi Ahoy number 1, Ejisu Haruna number 2. I am moving the situation forward and give my story credibility. I'm going to give my story credibility. Now listen carefully. This is how you know that this story is credible. All of that doesn't happen, yeah? It doesn't happen. John Mahama becomes president, okay? And you saw the video on 24 July, he's sworn he becomes president. He's taking charge. Koko Anyedeho is out. Kicked out. Forever. Get out of here. Still out. Kwesi Ahoy is a Greek minister. John Mahama keeps all ministers throughout the tenure until December. He becomes president after December on his own account. In January 2013, he's sworn in. Dr. Dufo is out as finance minister. Some people understand that because they think Dr. Dufo has served his term. He's retired from the Bank of Ghana. He served one term. Understandable. One of his deputies, Setekpe, is brought in as minister. Kwesi Ahoy is a Greek minister. Kwesi Ahoy is still very young. John Mahama demotes Kwesi Ahoy. Kwesi Ahoy suffered a demotion. And this is Ato Ahoy's brother. He suffers a demotion under the John Mahama presidency. He is dropped from minister to ambassador. Every ambassador is below every minister. That's the protocol. That's the rule. All ambassadors report to the foreign minister. Or, if you like, all ambassadors report to the deputy foreign minister. The deputy foreign minister is the boss of all ambassadors. Kwesi Ahoy was a senior cabinet minister, agriculture. He is demoted from agriculture minister, no deputy minister, dropped down to ambassador in South Africa. Maybe ambassador in UK or ambassador in America. Those are the top big ambassadorial positions we have. He's not giving either of them. He's taken to South Africa, to Pretoria, to go and relax. That's giving credibility to the story, isn't it? Ejisu Haruna, what happened? The first line of ministerial announcement comes. Ejisu Haruna is not part of it. Listen, go to social media and Google it. Tamales now sees demonstrations, orchestrations, ties are burning. What are they asking for? They want John Mahama to name Ejisu Haruna as minister. Why? Because they've got wind of the fact that John Mahama has no intention, absolutely, to name Ejisu Haruna as minister of nothing. Why? My story, our story, this story is getting some credibility, isn't it? Remember, that's what happened. Ejisu Haruna, when we tried to reach him back in the day, maybe he's forgot, he was out of Ghana. He was in a neighboring country somewhere. And it was believed that from the neighboring country, he was directing affairs in Tamale. Ties were burning. Cars were being turned upside down. The Tamale youth said that until John Mahama makes Haruna Ejisu minister, they will not sleep and they will not give John Mahama rest. Police were in there. After 2.5 days of demonstration, Ejisu Haruna is announced to be the minister for trade. Ejisu Haruna wanted to keep his job as communication if he could. John Mahama says, no, you can't have it. That's going to my boy. It's going to Amani Boama. It's not going to you. I know what people were thinking about me. You won't get it. Go to trade and fight it out. John Mahama does something else for Ejisu Haruna at trade. The NDC historical politics has brought up some friends and foes. And that happens in every political party. They say that in politics, your enemies are in your own party and your opponents are in the other party. So every political party has people in the same party who may be enemies and stuff like that. One of those contenders, you will say in NDC, is Ejisu Haruna and a man called Ni Lante Van der Poy. Ejisu Haruna and Ni Lante Van der Poy historically have had some tensions. How? It started when Ni Lante Van der Poy competed against Ejisu Haruna for the National Youth Organizer position of the party. Those days, Kufuor was president. J.J. Rawlings at the time supported Ni Lante Van der Poy against Ejisu Haruna. It turned out that Ejisu Haruna had almost lost his life in those circumstances. The event occurred in Wa. Ejisu Haruna was elected as NDC National Youth Organizer anyway, but he and Ni Lante Van der Poy had some tension. Advisors of John Mahama may have known that, of course. So what did they do? Ejisu Haruna is trade minister. Neil Vanderpoel is deputy trade minister. Friends of Ejisu Haruna call him and say, Chief, you're going to be in trouble. Oh. Your guy is deputy. Ejisu Haruna says, I've sorted it out already. He finds a way to sort it out. I know how it was done. It's not something you can see on TV. But he sorts out the relationship between himself and Neil Vanderpoel, okay? What happens after that? Ejisu Haruna seems to be coasting quietly at Ministry of Trade. Seems to be doing well at Ministry of Trade. He's setting up Exim Guarantee, turning it into a bank, and working on a lot of those things. Then, bam, John Mahama in election 2016 sees that there's going to be difficulty with labor negotiations and all that. It's going to be a very slippery slope. Ejisu Haruna is taken from trade and sent to labor. Go and fight the people election year, you will see. Go and face them. Ejisu Haruna is taken there and he's successful. Of course, Fiograba comes to trade. So this is the story of all of this background. Is the reason why Kwesi Ahoy, of all people, should never pronounce something like that against John Mahama. That's the reason. That is what is making it such a huge political faux pas. I don't think, for the little I know about President Mahama, I know about his family, I don't think that Kwesi Ahoy has been forgiven. Maybe he doesn't know. Kwesi Ahoy, you can't be forgiven. You will not be forgiven. You are telling him that he's going to, after all what you people did, after work with it, you will not be forgiven. But for campaign, everybody's going to smile. Let's put ourselves together. But Kwesi Ahoy, you will not be forgiven.